Hello everybody out there and welcome back to the RostyMaths channel and welcome to my Year 9 series. Now the Year 9 series has been going really well. We have done quite a lot of work on algebra, and if you missed the work on algebra, click on the pop-up banner up there and you can go and watch those videos. We are in our number section now and we're now moving on to upper and lower bounds. What do you know about upper and lower bounds? Time to check that out as we go into here. Now, if you are new here, please click on the subscribe button below and also hit that notification bell so you do not miss another upload. The uploads come out really often and they're very, very rich in content. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into upper and lower bounds.
Upper and lower bound. What is it all about? Well, it is all about rounding. So say I've got this number 15 here and it's rounded to the nearest whole number. And this will become really important as we go through this lesson today because you need to check to see how this number was rounded. I've rounded it to the nearest whole number. What I need to look for now is what is the lowest possible number it can be before you can round up. So the lowest possible number would obviously be 14.5. And if you know your rounding, then you would know this. So you'll know the minute I hit 14.5, if I was to round to the nearest whole number, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, I will round up to 15. But if it's 14.4999 or whatever the case might be, I would still have to round down to 14. What about the upper bound? Oh, by the way, I should probably say that this is going to be my lower bound, okay? What about the upper bound? What's the maximum number I can go to before I will have to round up to 16, okay? So I know it is not going to be 15.5, believe it or not, because if I hit 15.5, I'm going to round up to 16. So what would it then be in this case? Well, it's going to be 15.499 and it's going to be a load of recurring nines going all the way down there. If that's the case, I'm going to round down to 15. But in maths, we don't really have time to be writing 15.4 and a bunch of nines. So what we say for our upper bound then, contrary to what I've just said, is that the upper bound will be, once you know you're rounding to the nearest whole number, the lower bound is 14.5, but the upper bound is actually less than 15.5, and therein comes what the error interval will be, which is what I'm going to do in another video. So here is the hack, here is the shortcut version of it. Check to see how the number has been rounded. If it's the nearest whole number, then the nearest whole number is 1 unit. You add 0.5 to 15 to get the upper bound, so that's 15.5. You subtract 0.5 from 15 to get the lower bound of 14.5. Don't forget, though, that between here, you're going to have your error interval, and I'll talk about that in another video, but you will never be on 15.5. It's just an upper bound. It's an upper barrier, as it were, that you can't go past if you really think about it that way. All right, let's do some questions. Now, when solving these questions, the most important thing that you have to look for is what it's been rounded to. If you miss that trick, you're going to get the question wrong. So I've got some questions there on the left side and I'll be working on the right hand side. So let's jump straight into it. So I have got 645 and it's been rounded to the nearest 1 kilogram. 645 kilograms rounded to the nearest 1 kilogram. Because it's been rounded to the nearest 1 kilogram, in order to get my upper bound, so I'm going to put my upper bound here and then I'm going to put my lower bound there. Oopsie, don't need to put 4, lower bound there. In order to get my upper bound, I need to find out what I'm going to add on and subtract. So because it's been rounded to 1, half of 1 is 0.5. So you add 0.5 to there. So therefore, you're going to get 645.5 and 644.5 when you subtract 0.5 from here. That's my lower bound, and that's my upper bound. And don't forget what I said at the very beginning. The lower bound, this is going to round up to 645, but this is not going to round down to 645. It's just a barrier. It's actually 645.499999, but we just write 645.5. So keep bearing that in mind. Let's go on to the next one, otherwise the video is just going to get too long. The next one, so we have 800 grams. And let's see the upper bound and the lower bound. So 800 grams has been rounded to the nearest 100 grams. So because it's been rounded to the nearest 100 grams, find half of 100. Half of 100 is 50. So I'm going to add 50 and subtract 50. So the upper bound is going to be 850 grams and the lower bound would be 750 grams. And just like that, that is done. Let's move on. 75.20. So we got 75 and 20 pence. We're going to find the upper bound and the lower bound. What's been rounded to? Well, it's been rounded to 10 pence or 10 pennies. Now, 10 pence, half of that is 5 pennies. So 0.05 is how I will write that in. Okay, so that's 5 pennies. And again, you will add to get the upper bound, subtract to get the lower bound, and that will then give us 75 and 25 there, and 75 and 15 pence there. Literally, that's it. We're blitzing through this real quick, and I hope you're getting it. At any point, feel free to pause the video and see if you can work out the rest on your own, see if you get the same answers I get. Anyway, let's move on. Where are we now? 130 kilometers. So we got 130 kilometers there. We want the upper bound and the lower bound. What has it been rounded to? It's been rounded to the nearest 50 kilometers. Half of 50 is 25 kilometers. So 25, you add that on, you subtract that off there. So the upper bound is 155 kilometers there. And the lower bound is 105 kilometers there. And just like that, that is pretty much done. Okay, last two then, and these ones are a little bit weird. So I've got 14.5 here, and I want my upper bound and my lower bound. Let's see what's happened. So this has been rounded to the nearest 1 decimal place. 1 decimal place will be 0.1. Now, half of 0.1 is 0.05. If you didn't know that, just plug in a calculator and have a look for yourself. But half of 0.1 is 0.05. This is what I'm going to add and subtract from 14.5. Always check it, okay? All right, good. Let's go then. So when I add that 0.05 on there, I'll get 14.55. Or if you think about if you want to know how I do it mentally, how I do it mentally is like this, right? I imagine that this is 50 because there is a 0 here. So I imagine that that's 50. And if I add 5 on, I get 55. If I take 5 off, I get 45. So if you haven't guessed it, this is going to be 14.45. And that's what's happening in my head to work out the upper and lower bound, okay? So it's not really that bad. I'll put the 0 there just so you know that that actually is 50. Well, it's many zeros after that, but we'll stick to just 50 for now. And then finally, so we've got 12.32. And this has been rounded. Let's just get my upper and lower bound. This has been rounded to the nearest 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places would be 0.01. And when I find, so let's just box around that. When I find half of that, I'll get 0.005. Can you spot any patterns here at all? There is a pattern. Our number system is beautiful. Anyway, we will add and then we will take away to work that out. Or in other words, this is like 320 if you really think about it. And then you add 5 onto that. So that's going to be 12.325. Take away 12.315. And just like that, we are finished. Now, these can get more challenging where they can ask you stuff about significant figures as well. And if they do, things can get a bit interesting with that. But this is where we're going to stop today because we're coming up for 10 minutes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a like if you understand how to do upper and lower bounds.